The north of Italy always have the money and the power.
Furio Giunta isn't a noble gangster. He's just a degenerate with manners. The Sopranos didn't give you a hero. It gave you a thug who knows how to use a napkin. In a universe where every man fancies himself a philosopher king, but lives like a middle management thug, The Sopranos occasionally gifts us moments of rare, unintended clarity.
I happen to know that you were high at my mother-in-law's wake.
Take, for instance, the brief but unforgettable scene in which Furio Giunta, Tony Soprano's imported Italian enforcer, joins Christopher Moltisanti and Adriana Lacerva in a pre-funeral powder and bong session. The image of Furio, that impeccably composed emissary from Naples, sharing a plastic graphics bong with North Jersey's most dysfunctional couple, seems, at first glance, absurd, but that's precisely why it works. At its surface, the moment feels jarringly out of character. Furio, the immaculately ponytailed professional, usually reserves his violence and vice for the hours he's officially on the clock.
Furio Giunta just bought himself a little house in Nutley.
He spends his downtime in domestic bliss, cooking, sipping wine, tending to his villa, and occasionally glaring longingly at his boss's wife. To see him snorting lines and pretending to clear a bong before Livia Soprano's wake, it almost feels like a continuity error. And yet, that clash between image and indulgence is what defines him. Furio doesn't abstain from sin, he simply schedules it responsibly. The contrast with his American colleagues couldn't be starker.
We are for the money.
The Jersey crew lives in a perpetual tantrum, crude, insecure, and constantly posturing as men of respect while behaving like delinquent adolescents.
Your home is a spectacle. The television.
In comparison, Furio's European poise feels downright civilized. Perhaps that was David Chase's point all along. The difference between an Italian-American gangster and an Italian gangster isn't morality, it's manners. The Jersey mobsters are loud caricatures of power, while Furio, a man forged in the old world's centuries-old criminal tradition, treats extortion and assault with the stoicism of a union job. He clocks in, breaks a jaw, and clocks out in time for dinner. Fred the sheepdog, with a side of homicide. What unsettles viewers isn't that Furio does drugs, it's that he does them well.
Last week when I came home to learn that you had killed our dog.
He isn't the strung-out wreck Christopher becomes, nor the reckless narcissist Tony turns into when he's on a bender. He can take a hit, enjoy the high, and return to normal life without a trace of chaos. It's the sort of balance no one else in that world possesses. His violence is measured, his pleasure contained, and his self-discipline intact. In a cast of addicts, whether to substances, sex, or self-pity, Furio's vice feels refreshingly adult. This is not, of course, to confuse him with a moral being. Furio may be polite, but he's also a thug, a man who collects debts through violence, intimidates women, and does his boss's dirtiest work without flinching.
Hollywood tries to give these sociopaths...
His civility is ornamental, not ethical. The audience, however, is so desperate for decency amid the sludge of sociopathy that a little table wine and pasta making trick us into calling him well-rounded. The series practically dares viewers to mistake basic self-control for virtue, and that misdirection is part of the genius of The Sopranos. The show loves to flatter our moral confusion. We see Tony microwaving leftovers while Furio gracefully prepares pasta, and assume the latter must be the better man.
We wanted to stay Italian and preserve the things that meant something to us.
We mistake aesthetic taste for moral fiber, as if a well-cooked meal redeems a man who beats prostitutes for overdue payments. It's the same cultural delusion The Godfather sold America decades earlier. The notion that the mafia was a bastion of tradition and honor, rather than a collection of violent, self-absorbed degenerates with good tailoring. That single drug scene pierces through that mythology. Furio, like the rest of them, is there to escape reality. The setting, Awake, makes that crystal clear.
Everyone gathers and each one can voice a remembrance.
No one in that house is mourning Livia Soprano. They're anesthetizing themselves for the performance of grief to come. The coke and weed are just the social lubricant for another day in hell. That Furio joins in doesn't diminish him, it humanizes him. Even the most disciplined soldier needs something to dull the absurdity of his existence. There's also a comic irony in the image itself. The refined Neapolitan hardman huffing from a cheap American bong like an undergraduate. It's a cultural downgrade, a visual punchline. He may have come from the old country, but now he's just another North Jersey burnout, inhaling stale smoke with the locals. The old world meets the plastic decade, when in Rome, as they say, except this Rome smells faintly of mildew and resin. The moment also reframes Furio's dynamic with Christopher. Later, during Christopher's intervention, Furio remains silent, while everyone else piles on with moralistic fury. The show doesn't spell it out, but that silence reads like quiet solidarity. He knows Chris isn't suffering from drugs. He's suffering from the lack of balance Furio himself somehow maintains. There's an unspoken code between functioning degenerates. They understand that indulgence, in moderation, is a survival mechanism. It's telling, too, how audiences leap to defend Furio's restraint as proof of his nobility. The bar for decency in The Sopranos is so low that not being a complete disaster passes for sainthood.
Sydney, it's a sin to waste good food.
Bobby Bacalieri gets similar treatment for his politeness, as though refraining from adultery erases a lifetime of complicity in murder. The show mocks that instinct mercilessly. These men are not tragic heroes. They're adults trapped in moral infancy, confusing personal quirks for integrity.
The north of Italy always have the money and the power.
Even Furio's disdain for golf and the North reads less as ideology than as petulance, a man's tribal comfort disguised as conviction. His every gesture of taste or restraint merely highlights how debased his surroundings are. He isn't better than them, he just behaves better. It's presentation without principle, like polishing the silverware before a massacre. That's what makes the drug scene so important. It punctures the fantasy of the flawless European mafioso. It exposes Furio as precisely what he is, another degenerate in a world of degenerates, only better at pretending otherwise. He has enough self-control to handle a line or two, enough discipline to show up to a funeral soberish, and enough delusion to call that balance. Ultimately, The Sopranos never asks us to believe Furio is pure. It asks us to recognize how easily we mistake composure for character. His brief indulgence before Livia's wake isn't a lapse, it's a confession. Beneath the fine manners, the soft accent, and the enviable restraint, Furio is as complicit, as corrupted, and as lost as the rest of them. He simply has the good taste to do it quietly. In the end, that's the real juxtaposition, not between Italy and America, but between presentation and rot. The Jersey crew wallows in their own filth. Furio perfumes his. One side screams its depravity, the other whispers it in Italian. Both are, in their own way, rotten to the core. Furio just happens to be the only one who remembers to clear the bong.
Even scumbags appreciate good analysis. Do the right thing. Subscribe.